The time is now 6:17, and I call this regular meeting of the Freeport Economic Development Corporation to order. Ms. Marshall, can you please do our invocation? And Mark, can you do our pledge?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, God, for this opportunity to come and to serve our city. Lord God, we ask that you would just be present in this meeting. Lord God, help us to do the things that will bring prosperity to the city of Freeport. Help us to work in unity and help us to work together, Lord God. We thank you for wisdom and knowledge as we move forward to bring prosperity to the citizens and to the city of Freeport. We also want to just operate in your will, God. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sir.
That takes us to our citizen comments, and seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. And I'll give y'all some time to check the meeting minutes, and just let me know if you see any corrections or any changes that need to be made. And were there any changes that anyone needed to make to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our financials. Good evening, Ms. Hurst.
Good evening, everyone. This financial report is through January 31st, 2025. Sales tax was received in January for November of 2024. The EDC received $109,775, which is an increase when compared to the same month last year. Currently, the EDC has received $6,286 more in sales tax when compared to the same time period last fiscal year. As of January 31st, the revenues were over expenditures by $80,402 in the EDC fund. In the EDC projects fund, the fund balance was $768,549. The fund balance in the EDC marketing account was $119,060. And the fund balance in the TERS account was $769,665. That concludes it.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions for Ms. Hurst? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our quarterly investment report.
So the report reflects that on December 31st of 2024, the corporation's total portfolio of $3.3 million was managed in compliance with the PFIA guidelines. So the total cash in the EDC account was, and the EDC operating was $729,805. The debt service account was $17,477, and in the tax pool investment account was $2.5,096,635.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions about our quarterly investment report? Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Hurst. Or was there more? Oh, sorry.
On the investment policy next on the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to do a motion. I'll go ahead and, is there a motion to approve our consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Loisa, seconded by Ms. Marshall. Is there any debate or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All opposed state nay. Motion passed unanimously. We'll move on to our discussion and action items, and underneath that is to discuss and take possible action on an update to the investment policy.
So, when working with the auditors, it came to my attention that the investment policy needed to be updated. For the EDC, it was specifically named Robert and Kathy as the investment officer, so we just need to update Kathy to have that name removed and mine put on the policy.
Is there a way that we could do it to where you don't have to change it every time, or is that dangerous?
No, that's dangerous.
Okay, all right. So we need a motion to switch out the names.
I make a motion to remove Mrs. Zell and add, what's her last, Hurst?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hurst to the, think of the wording, investment policy.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion to remove Ms. Ezell and add Ms. Hurst to the investment policy by Ms. Loisa, seconded by Ronnie. Any debate or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion passed unanimously.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. And we'll move on to discuss and review the downtown and Main Street updates for January.
Yes, Mr. President, Wade Dillon is here as usual to
Okay.
update us on some of the great things happening in Main Street.
I don't know how I can follow that. Good evening, Freeport EDC. I'm here tonight to give you updates on Main Street Freeport and deliver numbers from Main Street Freeport's annual report. First, the month of January was dedicated entirely to reporting to the Texas Main Street program, which included a quarterly report and our annual self-assessment to reach accreditation certification through the Texas Main Street program. The latter was a very involved, time-consuming process which revealed to me key areas that the Main Street Freeport program needs to focus on, and that includes growth. Growth through addressing our blight, addressing vacant buildings, governmental structure, and fundraising opportunities for downtown. We will receive our results in March as to whether or not we received accreditation or if we will remain an affiliate program for 2025. As we're still in the catalyst phase going into foundation building, Main Street Freeport is making incremental steps, such as adopting bylaws, which the Main Street Board and City Council adopted in December. Now I'm working to identify where our historic preservation ordinances need to be revised before splitting the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board. I'm in communication with the Texas Main Street program and my fellow Main Street managers to cross-reference other ordinances and enabling language to ensure that once the board splits, the Freeport Historical Commission can do its job. Alongside our respective boards, I am now meeting with Robert and Shelby with Code every Tuesday to double down and work on downtown matters. These meetings have been very fruitful as we've identified areas within our historic preservation ordinances that need work and future ordinances that we can introduce for the growth, posterity, and preservation of historic downtown. Now, speaking of growth, y'all should have been sent the annual report for Main Street. The second to last page of Main Street Freeport's annual report, we highlight that 2024 was a big year for downtown reinvestment, with $142,813.90 invested by Freeport EDC. Along with local businesses, $572,311.90 was invested downtown. To me, that is a significant number that not only tells me that there is hope in our downtown, but shows how much our local community relies on and benefits from the Freeport Economic Development Corporation. In turn, these reinvestment numbers shows growth within the historic downtown district. In total, the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board invested and 189 volunteer hours. According to Independent Sector, with the Do Good Institute at the University of Maryland, the value of a volunteer hour in Texas is $31.94. The value of volunteer time varies by state based on differences in local wages and economic conditions. Multiply $31.94 by 189 volunteer hours, you have a value of $6,036.66 in volunteer hours spent to better downtown Freeport. The next Main Street Board meeting is February 20th at 5 p.m. at Freeport City Hall for those of you who want to attend. I also, again, extend an invitation to those of you who may want to serve on one of our subcommittees to give me a shout.
Can you repeat the date for that next meeting?
February 20th, 5 p.m. It's a Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
And
You're doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Were there any other questions or comments for Mr. Dillon? Well, thank you for the update.
You got it, bud.
Okay. That takes us to number 3, discuss and, oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
I thought you said Wade.
There. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Discuss and review the wayfinding improvements.
Mr. President, I'm sorry to see Lance is gone, but we've been discussing just primarily, I want to emphasize to the board that this is all primarily. Wade came to us, and in part of the UTSA study, talks about wayfinding, and there's a dire need for it, as Wade will articulate in a moment. But we started looking in, and Lance and I try to meet every week. He was out last week with injury and sickness, and then I was at ICSC. But we're talking about wayfinding, and should we not only do wayfinding, but also look at rebranding and marketing the town? When we've been calling, and Rachel's been doing most of the calling, reaching out for estimates, we're told what's the scope of work. So I want to get a clearer understanding of where we're going with that. But first, I'd like for Wade to stress the need for this endeavor.
So as so many of you know, before I took on the Main Street side of things, I was running and then managing the Freeport Historical Museum. And what is my objective? It's to get traffic downtown. It's to get traffic to the museum. And so seeing what other cities and what other towns were doing for their local historic districts and for their museums, it was everything that we're not doing. In fact, when you drive up, I want to say it's, 288 going into Lake Jackson, you see brown heritage signs that say Lake Jackson Museum this way. That's what I mean by wayfinding. There's also other options that guide people to these destinations. And it's extremely important, especially with us, as was mentioned during the TERS meeting. We're at the end of 288. We need everything in our power to guide people to the places that we want them to visit. Part of the issue that I foresee is inevitably that 1495 bridge, Pine Street Bridge, is going to come down. Last I heard, it had been pushed back to 2027. I could be wrong. So we want to get ahead of that with developing wayfinding. Right now, the city of Freeport has 2 wayfinding signs. There's one next to Old City Hall on 2nd Street, and there's one next to Hopper Field on Brazosport Boulevard. That's it. I think that there's more in Freeport. There's the local amenities downtown that we could, look into those wayfinding options for sure. Yeah.
Both of those songs right now are not accurate anyway.
The signs.
Yeah, the signs.
Yeah. The
I did those with Leanne a long time.
What was the comment?
It doesn't work. It's got whatever that is.
Much feedback.
But we did those things in an effort to continue on with more, and for some reason it never happened. So, but they're definitely wrong and need to be corrected. And another question, the brown signs you're talking, speak of, that's DOT, isn't it, Texas?
TxDOT, and I know Edith Fisher with the Brazosport Chamber was working to try and get some responses, and TxDOT has kind of been back and forth as to what it is that they want to do. So that's where we need to be proactive, find the areas within the town that we can put up wayfinding signage. Access roads like, I want to say Brazosport Boulevard, that is not controlled by TxDOT. You know, those big thoroughfares that we can utilize
Right.
and show members of the community.
Well, I look forward to doing this. Back, like I said, I don't know what that was, 4 or 5 years ago, Mr. Kelty shot us down on all of this.
I know this was something that my previous director, Leanne, had really wanted to push, and David's right, this was a few years ago.
This
so.
this is an essential thing, and I'll just comment. At my days at the state, when I was at the historical commission, you know, I worked with. I was up in Pittsburgh, Texas, and they wanted the brown TxDOT signs, and we have an advantage because we're an official member of the Texas Main Street program. The regional director up there was talking to me, and I said, the Texas Historical Commission has designated Pittsburgh, Texas, as a Main Street city, and you have to have historic fabric, i.e. buildings, to be in that program. Ergo, it's historical, and they got their brown TxDOT signs leading in. So it's those, Carlos Ibarra was his name, the director, and it's those kind of conversations that we should have, I guess. And I'm surprised to hear that Tim this didn't go through earlier. It's something that's absolutely essential. And I guess we have 3 questions. Do we just want to do it for the downtown district? Should we do a more comprehensive for the city? And then do we all, I mean, this would definitely raise the price of, do we even want to meddle with looking at estimates for rebranding, much like Angleton did?
If I can add to what Robert just said, you visit Angleton and they have a very, very thorough wayfinding package down to their branding, the heart of the county. You know, it's something that I did with the museum, redid the logo. So it's one of those things, you know, identify what makes Freeport unique, you know, in the way of iconography. Latch onto that. Utilize that in the wayfinding.
I have a question.
Sure.
So is some of it, Angleton, I know they have, like, they did the signage, but does some of it have to do with, like, should go down there and look, but the road names? I don't know why I'm thinking that those certain signage is costly, right? Do they get, like, somebody that sponsors that and their name is on there somehow, like a business or a
Not
company?
These are,
There's not?
From what I've seen, these are strictly informational or will possess like the name of the town. Your destination this way, 0.0 something miles. Arlen's 1.5 this way.
Okay, so that would be a cost solely on something that we would do, not like a corporate sponsor to do that.
I mean, you could always get somebody to help you sponsor anything if you're lucky, but I mean, that typically would be a city or an EDC endeavor that they do. I mean, this is done all over the place, and you know, there are cities in my mind that have done it better. There are cities that have wayfinding that kind of look cookie cutter-ish, if you will, but right now we don't have any. And just hearkening back to my days at the state when I used to visit here, Freeport is difficult because there's so many ways you can come in. I was never sure, and it's so windy. You're like, where is, you know? So for the person that hasn't been here, it's not easy, and you just need that comfort of saying, yes, right this way, right this way, right this way to the destination.
You know, I was on, the first thing I brought up on the Main Street Board was about the signage,
Yep.
that we do a horrible job.
Yep. I agree.
And it's something we need to correct.
I
mean,
agree.
You come to town, even if you want to find the museum, you just finally give up and leave.
That's
Or the
one of the
city hall.
comments that we get is, I didn't know you were here. And part of it's the lack of signage.
You know, I said we need to do it out on the highway
Yep.
off 332 so they know they can come over the bridge and come over here to the museum when
Absolutely.
we hold events. The problem is no one's ever wanted to take the step. And it is time that we actually took the step and got a cost analysis of what it's going to cost to do what we need to do. Because we do have multiple entries into the city. So you're going to have to do everything in triplicates.
And it's one of those things too, that if we want to continue to, investigate, TxDOT's, what they require for signage on their roads, 36 and Brazosport Boulevard, we'll have to, go through that. But yeah, we have 2 wayfinding signage.
I have to dig it up, but Leanne and I did get a cost estimate, and it was steep, and that's why Kelty turned it down.
Was the cost estimate just for wayfinding, or was it for marketing too?
It was for marketing and wayfinding.
All of it.
In and out of the city, and it was well over $100,000.
Here's what, this is what I thought. Okay, as we know, and we saw in the director's report today and last time, the Parks project is on hold indefinitely. There is that money there for it. Now, do we want, and I wish Lance were here, but do we want to just look at wayfinding right now and maybe do there's an investment. The reason I say this is there's an investment in time trying to dig this information up and find appropriate ones. And then I also know from experience, there are the companies that do the cookie cutter, and then there are the ones that really look at your community and do what's right for you. And you have to differentiate between those. And so I guess what I'm struggling with is should staff invest the time to look at the whole promotional package, or should we just stick with comprehensive citywide wayfinding that definitely focuses you into the downtown?
I had a question, Robert. So I guess all the terms are getting a little mixed up in my head. So wayfinding is just strictly telling you where something is.
Yes.
Like, that's the only thing it does.
And wayfinding, it can broaden a little bit when you talk about landscape architecture. That, for instance, when you think of, Freeport has, but let's just take Lake Jackson for a second. When you're coming from Houston and you see that landscape architecture that says
The City of
Lake
Enchantment
Jackson,
sign.
welcome to Lake Jackson.
Yeah, okay.
I should know what it says,
City
but I
of
don't.
Enchantment.
Yeah, and some people say that's part of the wayfinding package. So I would argue that. But now the branding that Angleton did that's the coming up with a new logo.
Okay.
And the reason I'm struggling with that is Lance had mentioned in a very preliminary way at one of our meetings, I think we need to maybe look at redoing all the branding
I
for the
agree.
city, the logo, all that.
Yeah, I agree. Hands down, easy. That's an easy choice for me. I think it needs at least a nice little update. I only asked because I was looking at the packet and I wasn't sure, in the Angleton pictures and stuff, I wasn't sure which, which type of thing we were looking at. Okay. But thank you for clearing that up.
What you were looking at is
Yes, ma'am.
part of Angleton's 63-page packet. I can send it to you.
Oh, okay.
That shows how they've gone in and what they did for that study that went into rebranding the whole city.
Oh, okay.
And
If you like, what I'll do is we'll send that. We didn't want to put the 60.
Yeah.
So we'll send that tomorrow just as a standalone thing so everybody can browse through it.
Okay. Thank you.
And Robert, I can try and dig up some of the information and the numbers that Leanne produced if I still have
Yeah,
those
I'll
files
look
to give
through
an
it.
idea. And it's one of those things that there's going to be different companies, different price points. But
So,
How many
question-
signs are you looking at?
I do not have a definite number in my head. What it'll probably come down to with these companies is they're going to do a survey and they're going to make the recommendation as to how many.
It would be arbitrary if we even told you, Mark. What they would do is the consultant would come in, or the folks that do the wayfinding, and they would look at all your points. They would look at, and then say, this is where you need it. And it would be individual to the city. So if we just said, well, it's going to be 60 signs, that would just be a random guess.
All right, so I just Googled while we were here. You know what Google is. It's $1,000 for a wayfinder sign. It's just a pole that's got the guides about that big around. You've seen them. The other ones are about $2,000 a piece. For instance, that includes installation of the sign. So you're looking at, if you had to put up, what do you think, Wade, maybe 20 signs?
I don't even know if it would be that many to be,
Well, just think
to be
about it, right?
honest
Say,
with you.
say we had 20, and times $2,000, how much is that? It's 40 big ones. So, you know, it's something doable, and I totally agree with that. And, you know, it puts a definition to the city.
And to kind of clarify with your question is what exactly is wayfinding? You know, they'll utilize visual cues, specific colors to guide your eye, you know, to those destinations. So there's a whole math and science behind
Yeah,
it.
I just looked at it, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the files, I know I have it, and y'all probably do too. The guy that came to town to do our survey or study on it had a map of everywhere where we needed a sign. And there's a lot of them, a lot of them. Right. Yeah, everything would have to change as far as, but the location of the signs would remain the same. You know, the corner of 36 and whatever, Cherry, you know, a sign there. But I'm excited about the direction this is going, but I really think if we're gonna do, what'd you call that?
Wayfinding.
No, not wayfinding, but rebranding, that would have to be done first.
Yes.
It can be done together.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just that way, you know, you have the downtown with its specific historical looking signs, where the signs out on 36, for example, don't have to look the same way the downtown signs do.
Correct.
But they would have to have the right color code or whatever we're doing.
And again, David makes an important point, and I think what he's alluding to is I cannot stress this enough, because going around in my travels for the Historical Commission, when it's individual to your city and you can spot the ones that it's the same as here as it is in Detroit, Michigan.
And I agree 100%. And we've got to invest in it at some point. Again, putting it off since, what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, is crazy. Now the cost has gone up.
Yeah.
So sitting around and saying, just, we need to do it but never do it, to me just makes no sense in this city. So let's move. Let's do something.
I guess what I'll do, if it's okay with the board, is we'll just start looking at the whole package, and then if we see, we'll make some command level decisions, as they say in the military. If we see that that's just gonna be way too much, we'll limit it down to wayfinding. Is that okay? And obviously then we'll bring it to the board.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Ms. Marshall, did you get that?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
All right. Good evening.
thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to number 4. Discuss and update on Sitting Bull Business Improvement Grant.
Yes, Mr. President, this is just an update, but I really felt it very necessary. Again, Wade and Code Enforcement, Shelby, and myself, we're meeting weekly. It's really produced a lot of great things. This actually happened before, but not to this extent. And the reason I felt to bring it to the board is it was another one of those command level decisions. I didn't think it changed the spirit of the grant proposal that was brought to you, but there was a change, and let me outline it. For the Sitting Bull grant, and let me first say, you know, I'm not blaming anybody or anything like that, but LaShonda, the owner, was not involved in this. This is the contractors. Lorinda. The Sitting Bull grant that we passed last month, they had their permit. Now remember, they had 2 permits. We're not talking about the fire permit, that's okay. We're talking about the permit for the bricks and mortar work. And the contractor was Brazos Port Construction, Jason Hayes. In our grant, he submitted $21,146,000 worth of work, a project scope. But then comparing notes, when we were looking, I looked and I said, wait a second, this, and I think it's on the next page, this permit is for $1,000 worth of work. So that doesn't, and basically your scope of work, basically this permit, when you sign all that stuff, Shelby was explaining, she was gonna be here tonight, but she couldn't, that's a legal document. So I'm not making any accusations, but it was, it was just way off. And so we can't, you know, basically the city wasn't getting, how can you have a project for $21,000, but then a permit that says 1,000? Then the second problem was that the construction company, Brazos Port, was not an authorized company that can be used, and that's because of they have to show insurance and things like that. So they weren't. So basically, we had to do two things. Number one, we had to make the work scope of work amount match what was applied to in the permit, and then it was either get a new contractor, or get somebody that can underwrite the work and say, I take responsibility. So I worked with Shelby closely on this, and we received a letter from, his name is eluding me, Richard Steed, who's a master electrician. He wrote a letter, Shelby approved it, and he's going to basically supervise the work, if you will. I might be using the wrong term, but he'll basically be the one responsible for the work that's done, and it's like Brazos Port Construction will be working as a subcontractor under him. Shelby has printed up a new permit. The appropriate amount of $314 was paid, and so the project's moving forward. I directed legal staff to continue, and it's ready for your signature tonight, Mr. President. But I just wanted to update the board since there was that change.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to number 5, discuss and take possible action on the conferences.
Yes, the ICSC conference in Las Vegas is coming up, and we went one year. We went with a team, and I thought it went very well, and those that did, feel free to chime in. But basically, we're looking at needing to get registered. We had, right now we have, Rachel, is it 4 memberships? 4 or 5. Yeah, well, one of them is by the city, so so it's 4 by us. And so what we did last time I thought worked really well, where we paired up in 2s, and then we had, David was kind of the rover, we call them, and was able to go. And I thought that served us adequately. It served us very well, actually. And I thought it really was a good conference. I'd like to see us do something like that, and have members of the board go. But not everybody can go, and it's certainly not a vacation. It was a lot of walking and things like that. I don't know if those that went last time can, or David want to chime in.
Yeah, there's 2 buildings, and they're separated by a pretty good walk in itself, and just massive buildings. I had a whole box of business cards. I walked that thing so many times I gave out every one of them. So it's a lot of work, but in the long run, we had some things that were possible, and some things may still be possible, but it's a worthwhile effort, and like I say, it was a new experience for me personally, and so I learned from that and know a little bit more this time. So.
What I had been looking at on their webpage, see, this is Tuesday. I guess it was Saturday, Friday or Saturday, at all of the hotels that were available. Now, last year, 2 years ago when we went, we stayed at the Sahara, and the only advantage of the Sahara, even though it was away from the convention center, was they had the Tran, that you can just hop on and it drops you off at different places. And of course, the convention center was our main one. There were several on here. There may be one left that's where there's several hotels right there by the convention center, hotels/casinos. So, what we do not want to do is find the cheapest one that we can find, and then turn around and have to get a cab or a Uber to take us there, or walk, because I walked 2 miles and I thought, golly, it was 100 degrees anyway, and I was give out. So any one of the trans they don't go to every hotel casino. They do not go to every one of them, but it's close enough to where you can get off. But that was the only advantage of the Sahara, even though it was down on the other end. So, but I'm looking now, and a lot of these they're already booked up, and our deadline is the 18th.
Before the meeting today, I printed out a list from the ICSC website on the hotels. The Bellagio is unfortunately booked, but the Embassy Suites and stuff like that, they still have enough. So if it's, if I'm given direction tonight on what we're doing, then I can get those booked first thing in the morning, and you'll have a little bit more options I can show you before you leave.
What's the date?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second week of May, I think, right? Second week of May?
It's May 16th through 20th.
And kind of how we did it last time, I liked, we got there on Saturday. The event starts Sunday afternoon. I remember joking with Mingo and saying, get it out of your system. And then, and then it was, Sunday was a pretty light day where you're just checking in, and we had a meeting together about, strategizing, and then really hit the ball, or hit the field running on Monday and Tuesday. And I propose that we do something similar to that again. I thought it worked out fabulously last time.
It's an experience for those that have not gone before. It's you get a lot out of it. It's well organized, and we paired up, as Robert said, and we had our information to give to them. I thought it was great what the presentation that we had, and it was you'll learn a lot.
So did you have something prepared and like beforehand, before you went? Like you said, you gave them a presentation. Who created that? You did, Robert?
No, we when you say a presentation, we kind of worked out elevator speeches in our head, because it's just a lot of talking off the cuff. You're meeting people. Now, we did have the benefit, if you remember, of David Kahn from the Dollar General thing, and he opened a lot of doors for us.
Oh, yeah.
And we were able to sit down, with good people and meet and get a lot of feedback. So there were a lot of sit-down meetings, and like I said, David was the rover, so he can tell you more what he was doing. But the teams that we had would sit down and meet with people, and it seemed like we were meeting all day. We just had one after the other after the other, and we didn't need a lot of. We had, as I recall, and please correct me, we had information, but aside from some of the maps, in a map where we could talk and point and say this, and here's 8.8 acres, and this is developable, I think we came with too much, quite frankly. We had all those books and stuff, and by the end, we were just like, no, we actually don't need this, but we were figuring it out as we went along, and we had more rather than less. Do your memories correspond?
Yes. First of all, like I say, with 99% of the stops made to talk to people, you only had a couple of minutes. You didn't have time to go over a book and say, here, this is what Freeport can do. So, yeah, you hit the high points and go, because they're on to the next person already. So.
A lot of it was scheduled. We had to be there at a certain time for them to see us. Yes.
And a lot of that was, not all of it. We did schedule some, but David Kahn opened a lot of doors for us. I have to give him credit.
So for those board members that wouldn't be able to attend, would you be willing to like kind of share your presentation with, you know, the ones that can't come, maybe just to kind of get some feedback before you go?
Yeah, so there really wasn't a presentation though. It was just in the moment talking and saying this is what we are. I mean, there really wasn't a planned presentation. At least I didn't have one. You just had talking points, and as the conversation went, you just hit those and steered it to, we have development opportunities here, but then it was more like calculus. I mean, it was like, if A, then, it might not be B. You'd fly off, and it just depended on what you were talking about. So it was more of a conversation. So there really wasn't a prepared, here's my presentation. And again, we went there with books and all this stuff, and by the end, it was, if anything, just a map that we could point to and say, see this opportunity and see this. It was really a lot of fast on your feet type stuff, and making those social connections, which is very much so what economic development is.
I think my most impressive part of it was when I would just show them the traffic counts. You know, Gulf Boulevard, Highway 288B, or coming into Freeport, downtown. So we didn't put that on there. But that's what they see. How many cars come
Can
through
you
this
speak
red
in the
light
mic a
down here
little?
on
I'm
Second
sorry.
Street? And the new businesses that we did have, so that helped a lot.
Yeah, I think we ought to go. That's
Who's
what this
going?
discussion about.
David, and I think
I can go.
you're gonna go, okay? Sandra, did you say last
Okay.
time you wanted to go? Were you serious?
Well, I would like to, but I'm gonna be out of town the week right before that.
So, I'll be out of town the week before that one, so.
Well, I actually work Saturdays.
I work
would have to
too.
get-
Josh,
I'd have to get somebody to cover me.
It's during the week, right?
Yeah.
Is school on?
Into school, no.
Oh, okay, never mind.
We got Star Test coming up, so.
So when is the deadline you need to know on the 4?
We have to have everybody signed up by the 18th.
Okay, you need the names.
Yes, and it looks like we've got 3.
Okay.
So can you get back with us?
Tomorrow.
Okay, I mean, it can be by.
And do you go the full 4 days? It's 3
We
days.
went for the full time, yes, we went.
So Saturday through Tuesday?
Yes, we went Saturday night, and then like I said, get it out of your system. And then Sunday, as I recall, we met at about noon, because that was the day you got registered, and I think there were a couple sessions. Yeah, because we saw Andy Reid, the coach. Yeah, it gave the opening
Keynote
kickoff.
speech.
Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs. And that was Sunday, and then Monday was, and it's a lot of walking. I mean, it's huge. David said 2 buildings. I seem to remember like 4, but yeah, it was a lot.
I'll never forget, I walked 6.2 miles that whole day.
Yep,
Okay, so it's at the convention center, right?
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's where I go for market.
yes. It was massive.
Well, it sounds like we'll just let us know by the end of the week. You don't have to let us know by tomorrow.
Okay.
That's good. End of the week, huh? Yeah.
And you're gonna book it where?
He's too busy going to prices.
Right now I have pricing for the Embassy Suites by the Hilton Convention Center in Las Vegas.
Embassy Suites is the smartest one, because you're gonna get breakfast in the morning, because breakfast anywhere else is gonna kill you.
And yeah,
That was Sahara,
I do
didn't
it
it?
first thing in the
I
morning.
can't hear you, Rachel.
I picked the Embassy Suites by Hilton Convention Center in Las Vegas. So that's the one that I'm looking at for the hotel bookings. It's the closest.
To the conventions?
And then, of course, there'll be flight information, so.
That would be walking. They didn't have the tram there. Maybe
Okay.
it's close, hopefully it's close.
I will be finding out more information and getting everybody a packet whenever I get Robert's stuff together.
It's easy enough to distance from the Embassy Suites, Las Vegas to Convention Center, Las Vegas.
Okay, we'll move on to number 6.
Okay, Mr. President, I think this represents us getting a little too
Yes.
excited to put something on the agenda. I looked at it today and I said, why is this on here? Basically, what this really says is Rachel's doing a great job. She is updating the website. The state of Texas got rid of the Chapter 313 incentive, which is an economic development tool, and they replaced it with something called the JETI program. The main difference between 313, it was kind of unwieldy, and JETI is you can exclude the option to waive job creation requirement. So it's mainly for industrial, but suffice to say we removed the obsolete 313 from the web, and we now have the JETI program, and anybody that needs to know more about it, give me a call.
All right, that's it for our discussion and action items. That moves us to our board and executive director comments. Ms. Marshall, can you please start us off if you have any comments?
Sure. First of all, I missed the last meeting, so I just want to say Happy New Year to
Happy New
all
Year.
of you I haven't spoken to since last year. The only question that I do have is I was thinking, spring break is fastly approaching, and I was wondering, did we ever put the beach sign up?
Yes, if you read your report, the director's report that came out today, the beach sign, the beach is up. It survived the storm very well, and there is kind of a little story behind that sign today. When I was preparing for Dallas, the ICSC, the Red River, I was looking at Google, and I go in depth in this in the report and show but Google Earth was showing the beach to be at the park, FMP, and so we worked with Toby Cohen, our IT person, and we optimized Google and fixed all the mistakes and put the requests to Google. So now when you go to when you look up the beach sign, that sign actually comes up on your Google search. Read your director's report. It's the last item there. It's kind of a fun item, but it's very serious business too. Well, I can't go into that story, but we had a developer that was very interested, and there are other people that are very interested that were along a beach, and so we certainly don't want somebody not knowing where it is, but that's all corrected. But to answer your question, yes, the sign's up.
Okay, great. That's great. And then one more question. I know that we had a business on the river. They were doing the paddle boats and
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Are they
The
still
pop box
there?
guy?
The pop box is still there. We moved to extend that contract, if you recall. It should be coming up for renewal again, and they're doing great. We kept the rent the same, and he's expanding. He's got a discount for the city staff. It's growing, and it's doing exactly what was intended. And the board did extend that contract, and if I can editorialize, I wouldn't see a reason not to do it again.
That's great, because I was just thinking, do we advertise that business on the Brazosport Chamber of Commerce?
I believe they are a member of the chamber. I don't know if we do, but we have implemented as part of our business retention and recruitment a program where Rachel is reaching out to businesses and highlighting them in the town. I don't know if that particular business has been one of them, but we do. Rachel does a phenomenal job on Facebook and doing all that updating that takes. And so I can't speak to whether they're highlighted on the chamber website, but I seem to recall when I had a discussion of him, for some reason I seem to recall him saying he was a member of the chamber.
Okay, great, because, I guess I was thinking, when people come to Freeport to go to the Surfside Beach, whether it's for holidays or whatever, there usually is a very long line, and they get stuck at Buc-ee's.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be a great opportunity for us to advertise, hey, we got some other cool stuff you can do in Freeport besides just sitting here being stuck waiting to get on the beach. And that business, I think, would be great, you know, to start bringing traffic into the city. So that's why I asked about that.
And I agree with you. I think that's a very good, I mean, with regards to the beach, I went to the beach a few times just comparing, and it can be very difficult to get to Surfside. And so part of the equation of what Shonda is saying is just, you know, most people look at Google, and then they can see now that we've got the beach and we've optimized that. And then the next thing is what is there to do? And since Google and maps are so prevalent, we want to make sure that those maps are optimized to show our attractions.
Okay, well, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Mark?
I was excited because of the signage. You know, that's such a documented, it's really a great idea. And I was really excited too about, you know, the headway that we tried to make on the Main Street project and also the river. And I think, you know, we stay focused and keep on that. I think, you know, Freeport can benefit from that.
Thank you, Mark. Ronnie?
Nothing.
David?
Okay, a couple of things. For Ms. Shonda, when the Brazoria County Chamber of Commerce gives its report to the Freeport City Council, the number one hit is always the beach here, our beach, not Surfside, but our beach. So we keep that rolling. Number two, I'm very excited about this signage deal and getting it back on track. It's probably been 4 or 5 years since it got derailed. So I'm hugely excited about that. The possibility of downtown getting some work and some love is also exciting. I had one other thing, but it's gone at the moment, so that's it.
Thank you, David. Ken? Okay, thank you. Ms. Loisa?
I don't have much, but I do want to express that I'm super excited about the picket fence opening in Freeport. That was fantastic. I love seeing all that going across on social media, on Facebook, people sharing that they open. And then I actually haven't been there, but I heard that the Dollar Tree opened again.
Yeah, I heard the same.
And so it's just other options, right? I think Mr. Matamoros used to say that all the time. I think people say that about shopping in Freeport. So we want to have the options for our members, like I'm talking at work, our citizens to shop. That's what we call ours. And then just I don't know if I can ask or not, or if it's out there or not, but a question about the building that's being built. I think I had asked about 2 months ago.
Oh, the one over there behind those
Yeah.
other buildings.
Can we say what it is, or it's behind that building? It looks like it's a 2-story. Looks like it. It's behind the Mexican restaurant.
No windows.
Can we not say what that is, or is it still not?
Well,
Okay, that's okay. I was just curious. When can we say what it is?
when it opens.
Or when we can say what it's going to be? That's exciting. I mean, anything that's opening up and people see improvements, things coming up, buildings, I mean, it's exciting. So just, ready to see what's going to be. But anyway, just happy that we have those few other things that opened in Freeport. So that's it.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone who's watching, who may be watching online, and those that were here in attendance earlier. And I just wanted to add that it is really good to see the city kind of getting back on its feet. I know I did, and I think many of us, especially those of us that are from Freeport, we didn't think that Hurricane Beryl was going to be, anything different than what we had experienced, and it very much was. So it's really good to see, just something as simple as Arlen's, just a grocery store being back open, because it really is a huge inconvenience, having to drive, 15 minutes for any type of grocery item. And, good seeing Dollar Tree back opened, up as well. And then, of course, anything new coming into town, just giving the people of Freeport more options, more places to spend their money, more places to get the things that they need to get just to fulfill, you know, the needs of their lives. And then outside of that, I am really looking forward to seeing just the progress. And I know maybe from the outside looking in, it may look slow, but just the progress on the river, and then also with the wayfinding, with the signage. Because personally, I do think it's long overdue for a little bit of a facelift. So I'm looking forward for what's to come, and just, you know, happy about the things that have been accomplished thus far. Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
I would like to thank the board, and, you know, I'm always able to reach out with questions and get guidance and get help. Sometimes it's frustrating, I'll be honest, you know, when you find unexpected deed restrictions.
I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, can you speak up just a little?
When you find unexpected, unwelcome surprises, but being able to call you and get your wisdom is always important to me, and I want everybody to understand that. I also like to thank Rachel for the work that she's doing. Just a couple comments. If you recall, please, no, not if you recall, please remember that Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, we'll have the Business Improvement Breakfast. We'll have Starbucks, and we'll have Mi Pueblito breakfast tacos. Also, speaking of Starbucks, I got Gabby is very responsive. She runs a good store, and she reached out to me today. She wants to work with me and Lance on some advertising endeavors, so if there anything comes out of that that needs to be brought to the board, I'll do that. ICSC up in Dallas went okay. I have to admit, I got a migraine the day it happened, and I was seeing double. It was terrible, but still was able to meet some folks, although I'd be lying if I didn't say I was slowed down a little bit. And I focused on, well, maybe I'll stop there. Anyway, things got done. It was good. So thank you, Mr. President. Back to you.
Thank you, Robert.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thursday at 8 o'clock in the morning at Ann's Party Place.
I won't be there either.
Oh, one more thing. Just since we were, remember your director's report up at the top, confidential.
Oh,
Okay.
Of course. Thank you. Okay, that takes to executive session. So it is now 7:14, and I hereby recess the regular session of the Freeport Economic Development Corporation meeting, and do hereby convene into executive session.